And in today's video, we're going to look at a quick trick for creating a date table off of an existing data set in Power BI. So to do that, I have a data set here and a column that I'm going to call your attention to called permit date. The first thing to do here is create a new query and a blank query that references this existing data set. And so to reference it, we're just going to type an equal sign as in the name of that particular table. In this case, it's permits. And here, in order to make a date table from this column, we need to know the range of dates. So we need to pull out the max and min date of this. To do that, we're going to use the group by function. But first, before we group by, we're going to add a little helper column here for our grouping, and we'll call this group by, and we're just going to make it a single number one so that every row has the same. And that way, when we group by that row, we'll just get one row result. And so to pull out the min and max date, what we're going to do is use the aggregation tools in the group by function. Here we'll just call this min date. And in operations, we'll select min, and the column we're going to run that on is our permit date column. And we'll add a max date. Same thing, except we're going to pull out the end date of that same permit date column. And when we run this, we can see we get one row with the minimum date and the maximum date. Now, this is the range for that data set. I do want to be a little bit broader and extend this to the beginning of the month and extend this to the end of the month. And to do that, we're going to use some of the built-in functions in the mQuery mode. So what we're going to do here is call this start date. And as I start typing date dot, you can see the IntelliSense will kick in here, and I want to pick start of the month. Now this could be start of the year, it could be start of the week. In this case, we're going to do date dot start of month, and I'm going to enter in the min date column, and that's going to show now the beginning of this month. We're going to do the same thing using our max date, and we'll call this end date. And again, date dot end of month, and we can see a lot of options here, but we're going to pick end of month and put our max date, and that's going to send that particular to the end of that month. So now we have our start date and our end date, and what we want to do is create a list of all of the dates between 7/1/2015 and 4/30/2020. To do that, we're going to add one more custom column, and that column is going to be, actually, we'll just call it date. And we're going to use the number from function, and number from is going to take this date and turn it into the actual numerical version of that date. So we're going to pick our start date. And so if I just run this as is, you'll see it's just going to convert this 7/1/2015 into that numerical date form. But we want to get all of the dates. And so to create a list, we're going to use these, they're called brace characters or curly brackets. We're going to add a curly bracket that's going to set a list, and we're going to use two number from formulas to draw the number from the start date and to the end date. And the real magic here, once we put the curly brackets, is how do we make that list know to go from the start date to the end date? We're going to add two dots in between. We can see that our formula is now correct. And when we execute that, you're going to see that this changes into a list. So at this point, I can remove everything else, and I have a list of all the dates between the start date and the end date. Now they're in numerical form. So what I'm going to do is change them into the date format, coming up here and changing this to the date format. And from this format now, we have all of the dates from the beginning of our table to the end of the table. And if I wanted to add more months to this, it's very simple. We come back up and we're going to add columns. In this case, I could say, let's say month name. And in the same way we had before, we can use date dot. And as we start typing, you'll see all of the options are available to me. I can pick date dot month name, and we just need to enter the date column into this for it to work. And of course, we can go all the way across and build that date table. But that's essentially how to build a table that always references the range of dates within your existing table. So as this table changes and grows, our date table will continue to grow along with it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for joining me with another Azure Every Day in Power BI.